Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact is that people want to complicate nutrition. And a lot of times you don't have to. You don't really have to make it as complicated as what people kind of think it should be.
Yeah. Give me the simplest version of what you think a healthy life is.
One of the things that I've evolved over the last couple of years was this SHEDS model. Basically stress, hormones, exercise, diet, and sleep. And the strategies for managing those is going to evolve with time because, if you have young children in the house, it's different than like when I have teenagers. We don't focus enough on sleep. And when I say sleep, I don't necessarily mean like the thing that you mentioned about the cold plunge. And I don't know, I really have to know the numbers. I just need to understand the concept. Doing drug X led to a 50% increase in your dopamine for 10 minutes versus doing a cold plunge for 3 minutes led to a 400% increase in your dopamine for 2 hours. I think it was actually Dana White was talking about this. He was like, a minute and a half into that, your brain is flooded with dopamine and it is a feeling like I've never had before.
Welcome to the Good Grief, Good God Show, hosted by Grammy nominee and Emmy award-winning hit songwriter Brad Warren of the Warren Brothers. Join Brad monthly on the first, third, and fifth Tuesdays in audio or on YouTube for raw, honest conversation about surviving things that suck. For today's episode, Brad welcomes a board-certified general surgeon, cosmetic surgeon, functional medicine practitioner, and owner of Nashville's Compass Human Performance, Dr. Lee Howard. Dr. Howard believes that true wellness extends beyond just treating the symptoms. Dr. Howard and his clinics take a practical approach to health, offering clients comprehensive education on improving their quality of life by treating the whole person, not just masking the symptoms with medication. I'm producer Matt Pivito. To learn more about today's guest, Brad, and the show, check the description where you'll find clickable links to access this episode's audio and video links, to connect to the show on social media, and to visit goodgriefgoodgodshow.com. Lastly, we value your feedback, so please hit that like and subscribe button. Leave us a comment or review. On the behalf of Brad's wife and executive producer, Michelle Warren, and segment producer and guest booker, Lisa Bolt, thank you for tuning in. The Good Grief, Good God Show is brought to you in loving memory of Sage Michael Warren.
And he said, I've been waiting for this call. I'm here because it's you, but I've never talked about it, And I'm like, oh God, I've become Barbara Walters. Or whoever makes everybody cry.
Whoever does that pulls that out of it.
Never talked about it. And we're in here like digging at the bottom. I'm like, holy cow, this is really...
Yeah.
He lives in Houston, so he flies in to do these.
I got you.
So we've 3 weeks in a row shot 3 per week for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, so you get together, do the intensive kind of thing, and then
we got basically probably the first half of what we're doing because we divide a lot of them in half, and then we'll shoot again in like March or April. But yeah.
Now, what can I not do? Can I not put my feet up? Is there
anything he doesn't want? Like I kicked the table accidentally. By the way, Charles Kelly kicked the table 100 times because his legs are so long.
I almost tossed something up there. You were doing this the whole time.
I was doing this?
Yeah, and you can hear the microphone.
They can't hear over your clicking.
I was going to say, if I'm making more noise than you, how come I can hear you but not me? I don't hear. I don't know what. All right. Dr. Lee Howard.
Hello.
I mean, it's not formal introductions. This is interesting because this is like a grief. It's funny. This podcast is grief, and there's God, and there's a lot of recovery because it's like where I am and what I do.
Yeah.
And so I'm a songwriter, musician, so we have a lot of singer-songwriters, a lot of artists, actors have been here, some therapists, whatever, but I never had like a doctor. Well, you're not a regular doctor. So I wanted to have you on almost like as a gift to everyone because you've been a gift to me, but I've said you so many people because I always say doctors practice medicine and you perform health. So you're not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not really
like that
regular doctor. Instead of I don't want someone practicing on me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I really perform health. So anyway, thanks for being here. I think this is going to be really cool.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the compliment. It's been it's a great opportunity to be here and, and get to talk to your audience.
Yeah. I mean, I start usually with, I don't always start with it, but I always have a quote for whatever guest I'm having. Something that applies. So I had 2 for you. Never had a double quoter, but the 2 quotes I got for you, this was Eleanor Brown. The first one, self-care is not selfish. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. And I thought of that because, the truth is that when Sage died, my my paths were very definite. I can go down this path, and that's let everything go, drink again, go and make everyone's life miserable until I die a miserable, lonely death. Or I can run straight into this thing, get okay with the pain that's there, try to recover and serve the best I can. And that has all been, that's been mental, it's been spiritual, but it's also been physical. And
Mhm.
you've been a big part of that. So I wanted to, that's number one quote. And the second one was, he who has health has hope, and he who has hope has everything. And that's an old Arabian proverb. So anyway, that's just kind of was the starting point for me, is this path. I always kind of worked out, and I always kind of whatever healthy, but I kind of got serious about it when it's fun to like learn about it. It is now my hobby, as my wife would tell you.
Yeah.
So I want you to give your synopsis on that. I know where I've come since I met you, and just the interest in it and the discipline it takes. But yeah, I want to get your take on physical health and what it has to do with the rest of this.
Yeah. So my background is that I'm traditionally trained as a surgeon, and I feel like that entry into the body gives you a knowledge, a perception of disease, and how disease affects the body. I think you get a different perspective of that when you're a surgeon than if you were just like an internal medicine doctor, maybe. And so, it's one thing to kind of like, learn about health, operate on somebody, but when it starts to affect you, and at some age, we all need the doctor, right? We're all going to get sick. We're all going to start to accumulate stuff. So when it started to affect me was when I realized, like, okay, I've got to take that knowledge, that perspective that I had, and start to apply it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's evolved over time for me, I think, and I think obviously I hope it continues to evolve, right? Because as the information comes out, that's exactly what we should do.
I love that about you as well. You're always learning. You're not like, oh, this is the way it is.
Yeah, it's not just this way. There's definitely, I've evolved a lot even in the last 3 years. I think, after COVID and some of the things that came out around that has definitely changed, some of what I do. So, yeah, I just, my perspective was that I was so tired of watching people get to a point of just being diseased. I use the trifecta of like sick, fat, dead kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's just so many people, like you said, who are on that path. And to me, the path in health is clear, right? Just the same as the decision that you face. You face a choice of eating the bad food or not eating the bad food. And those decisions just stack over time. And so either we're making good positive choices and moving down the path or not. But at the end of the day, it was that perspective that helped me sort of start to think differently when this affected me. I felt like, there was no real hope for me in modern medicine. And I don't mean hope for me as a clinician. I mean, at solving the problems that I was facing.
For your own physical.
Yeah, for my own physical health, right? Yeah, exactly. And so, and part of that had been affected by going through residency, which is, surgical residency is pretty tough. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot
Sounds
of
like absolute hell.
Yeah, for a lot of people, that's how they would describe it. But anyway, that has come full circle now to me realizing, like, okay, my contribution here is to help people find health through doing nutrition right, making sure that their hormones are balanced, helping them incorporate exercise, talking about stress, talking about sleep, and then having an accountability system and a kind of follow-up system that allows us to stay on track, right? Have a plan, work towards that plan, talk about the things that come up, talk about new things. And I'm excited as we're growing in our business and in our company, we're adding more people who are going to be able to help us, reach out to our clients in different ways. So there's going to be more interaction that we will have going forward with our clients. But at the end of the day, modern medicine does not serve that role. They're great if you have a femur fracture, or, if there are definitely times when surgery and medicine, I think, are still necessary. No doubt about that.
Yeah, when you break your ankle.
Exactly. Yeah. There's things that we have to rely on that for. But for most of us who want to maintain our best state of well-being, it's not going to be found at your traditional doctor's office.
I couldn't agree. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I have another regular doctor, and I love her to death. She's great, but it's a different thing that we're going after. One of the things is I'm easy. now you got me, like, right. I'm all into most of it. Now here's the, my diet isn't perfect, but I eat a little bad stuff. I eat a lot of good stuff. I eat some stuff that's terrible for me, but I also intermittent fast. So I feel like
you
counteract
get a little
those things.
flexibility,
a little flexibility in those things. So it's not like it's craziness with me, but I'm an easy patient now, for whatever the experience I've been through. How do you talk to somebody that's, I hate to work out. I hate healthy food. I can't, what do you say?
I think there's always something that somebody's willing to do. And I've kind of gotten recently to where I ask this question on when I'm kind of interacting with someone new for the first time. I ask them, what's off the table? What are you not willing to do? Are you not willing to stick yourself with needles? Are you not willing to, skip meals? Are you not willing to, drink a lot of water and give up your soda or tea? Right. So,
quit smoking.
Yeah, whatever. We could go on and on and on. The list is broad, right?
This whole show is for our producer Matt back here, so we're dedicated to.
We know who the intended target is.
This was not dedicated to Sage. No, I'm kidding.
So yeah, I try to find out where they're not going to budge at, and then exploit the things that they will budge on, and then usually it's kind of a snowball effect, right? You get somebody feeling good. You get them, kind of like realizing that there's something better out there, and you can't unsee those things, right? 100%. So when somebody starts to unsee that gluten makes them feel bad, it's kind of hard to say like, well, gosh, I'm going to knowingly just go sort of self-sabotage like that. And we're humans, we still do that, but we would do it to a much less degree, right? And so I've sort of accepted the fact that there can be, for probably 20 to 40% of my clients, there's going to be a slow roll.
Yeah.
Right. Like I got to find the one gap that I can exploit and then start to really, get the most out of that, like really squeeze that down. And then usually with time, I can kind of turn the crank.
And when you see little wins, it's just like kind of like that. Dave Ramsey is another one of you smart guys that I'm a fan of. But when you have the little win, that's why they say pay off the small debt.
Yes,
first.
pay off small debt first. Right. Yeah.
That's the little oh man, if you happen to be overweight, that's funny. When I get sick, I get underweight, but if you lose 5 pounds, you're like, oh, there's a little win, or you feel just a little bit better. To me, it was more the gains and the way that I felt better after doing something good than the negatives. I'm a recovering alcoholic and drug addict, so the negatives apparently were never enough to stop me.
Yeah,
but the positives are enough to get me sent in another direction. Yeah. I'm an addict, I guess. So just move your addiction over.
Yeah. Move it to a different place, right? I was thinking on the way over today, I was like, yeah, we typically think of like sobriety as abstaining from some sort of drug or alcohol addiction, right? But sobriety, I think, can come in a lot of forms, just like addiction can come in a lot of forms, and there is it is a state of sobriety to realize that. So one of the other techniques, as you were asking, like, what do you do when there's kind of this tough nut to crack, which is to help people realize that what got you to where you are, right? So if you're 50 pounds overweight, your joints hurt all the time, you're not sleeping good, you've got blood pressure issues, you got heartburn, then everything that you're doing, right? The things that got you here are definitely not going to be the things that will get you to where you want to go, right? So once you realize that, like, okay, the steps that got me here are not working and I have to radically change that. It's kind of the same thing with that's sobering, right? Now you're empowered with knowledge and you can't unsee that. And so,
what are your triggers? There's a lot of parallels,
exactly.
I guess.
Yeah.
It's interesting, to me about sobriety. Like you have to, you don't just, you can be, have you heard the term dry drunk? People talk about this. So you can quit something, but if you don't fill that hole with anything else, then it's going to be there. And my thing about it is, it's interesting when I talk to you because you're always searching. You're never flagging the ground. This is where it ends, and you keep moving on. And it's a refreshing thing because the doctors and medicine, they're as wrong as we are on a given basis, just with way higher stakes. You hope your pilot's never that wrong, but diagnosing, but you're always learning. And it is kind of a little adventure to get out there and kind of like learn what's the next thing. And it's not like, I am certainly not some kind of guru, but I do love health and fitness now. And it's become like a way of life. And I'll be honest though. So the cold plunging, I've been cold plunging in the pool. My joints, where I used to have to wear elbow pads, I don't have to wear them anymore. I'm like, well, that's worth it. So then I don't feel like getting in because it's freezing today.
It's
freezing.
not fun, right? Yeah.
And I'm like, well, but my knee kind of hurts, and I know that'll be. It's just a total give and take thing. I mean, it's so.
That's
worth
a
it
win
me
too, right? So when you kind of like when you overcome that, oh man, I really don't want to do this part, and then you grit it out anyway. That definitely stacks a W for you.
Yeah, I'm much better at denying myself something than I am moderating. So fasting works for me because once I start eating, man, it's like when I started drinking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
It's on, but I can go 16 hours without eating. It's fine. But then when I start, it's kind of going good. I mean, you got to play to your strengths. Is that something that you
absolutely?
ascribe to?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, some people's strengths is going to be that they love to exercise, but they can't control themselves well in the kitchen. And then you see the opposite of that. Some people are going to work themselves rather than focus on nutrition.
Yeah.
So the level of kind of interaction that we work on is going to hopefully allow us to kind of figure out where we can kind of advise them on when do you need to use a meal delivery solution? Why is this meal delivery solution right for you? For some people, it just makes sense for them to pay the money for a physical therapist or for, a trainer to give them some workouts. And we have some people that we work with that, we can get some customized programs for people that they can do in a very limited amount of time with really no equipment.
Wait, there's meal delivery?
Well, yeah, there's several of them, but
I mean, of course, there's everything. If you,
yeah. Well, I mean, the fact is that people want to complicate nutrition, and a lot of times you don't have to. I mean, you don't really have to make it as complicated as what people kind of think it should be.
Yeah. Give me the simplest version of what you think a healthy life is.
Okay. So one of the things that I've evolved over the last couple of years was this SHEDS model what I call the SHEDS model. And it's basically stress, hormones, exercise, diet, and sleep. So if we sort of look at those 5 areas, I think that you have to evaluate your behaviors, sort of what you're doing in each of those 5 areas, right? And how are they impacting that or each of those areas of your life, right?
Okay.
So imagine that this could also be like a little star and you're thinking about, well, if I was doing really good in my business or something, but I wasn't really doing much on my family side, then that starts to get things out of balance, right? Yeah, so same thing with this. So stress, hormones, exercise, diet, and sleep. And I just believe that, and the strategies for managing those is going to evolve with time because, if you have young children in the house, it's different than like when I have teenagers. And so there's definitely things that have to change as your circumstances change. But largely, I think we don't focus enough on sleep. That is a very, very big. And when I say sleep, I don't necessarily mean like going to the dark room, putting your head on a pillow and zonking out for the night. I think that there are uses for naps. I think that just going to a place where it's quiet and you get solitude that can just allow you to not be under some sort of like constant stimulation is also sleeping.
Meditation?
Yeah. Meditation is an example of that. Yeah, exactly. So I think that the options that you have to kind of manage those things are going to change over time, and meditation can definitely be one of them. But yeah, so working with our clients in those areas is kind of like how we start to build their plan.
Yeah, one cover because I do really go with most of the stuff. I'm a bad sleeper. I always have been.
Yeah,
I have a terrible bladder. Whatever. I'm a get upper, and so
notorious for men. Guys, if you're listening, most men don't sleep well, especially once you get past like 35.
Like if I don't have some sort of help sleeping, I'm at least melatonin and whatever, if not, something more. I'm not really going to be functional for at least the foreseeable few days after that. One time you said to, cause I was like, I would love to tell you, I'm not going to take anything to sleep, but I'm just going to, you said, well, I don't like you taking anything to sleep, but it's possible. It's very possible that these sleep aids are harmful to you, but it's definite that not sleeping is harmful to you.
1,000% right. That's right. Yeah. There may be some harm from melatonin, right? There may be some harm from GABA or something, whatever L-theanine or something, but there's definitely repercussions from not sleeping.
I hear
that. I know.
Really serious physical, mental, the whole thing. Just not sleeping is like the worst thing you get. Have you heard? I can't remember. It's a sleep doctor. He wrote a book. I have it. gosh, I can't remember. It was very interesting. He did a Joe Rogan podcast, and it was fascinating how important sleep was.
Yeah.
And then again, I'm like, yeah, the dentist thinks your teeth are the most important part of your body too. Is there any of that? Like the sleep doctor that does all the sleep
Yeah,
study?
sort of
course
like,
he
yeah,
thinks-
everything looks like a nail when you're a hammer. I guess I think that you can probably overcome like a sleep deficit or a sleep problem by having some good things in other areas of your life. So, for example, let's suppose that maybe you don't sleep more than 5 hours a night.
Yeah.
But you are able to get in a sauna, most days of the week and get a good workout in, and your nutrition is fairly good, right? Then, and I truly believe after, seeing thousands of men that like 5 to 6 hours a night for most men is good. So I get guys, I had a guy call yesterday and he's like, oh, gosh, I'm only sleeping like 7 hours a night. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah,
that's
I'm so
like,
jealous.
you found the Holy Grail. Like, what did you do? Tell me where it's at. I want to come get some.
When you say sleep 5 hours, like I think I sleep like 3 or 4 hours. Then I get
Pretty
to the
solid,
bathroom,
right?
Pretty solid.
And then
I get up and it's kind of a toss fest for another
3 or 4 hours. Yeah,
4 hours.
That's right.
So it would appear as though I got 8 hours of sleep
That's
or 7,
right.
but it's how healthy is that?
Well,
I'm in there, I'm giving it a shot.
So I have done a lot of tracking with like Fitbits and Whoop bands, and mainly what I've used is an Aura Ring personally. And what I found is that even though I'm averaging like 6 hours of sleep, and I have a sleep efficiency of about 75%. So I need to be in bed about 8 hours to get 6 hours of sleep.
Okay, yeah.
And because I'll wake up and toss and turn. So I'm sort of like the pattern that you described is really common for men. 3 to 5 hours of like good solid sleep. And then it's sort of broken for like the next, 3 or 4 hours. So that's pretty common pattern. And so, for me specifically, what I've noticed that even though I get 6 hours, I'm still meeting pretty good numbers on my deep sleep and on my REM sleep.
Yeah.
So there are bigger questions to just say the numbers of how much you slept, because the breakdown of what your sleep is within those hours can also be still good. You know what I mean? You can be getting restorative sleep, but it's just you're getting it in a truncated period of time. And so if that's the case, right, then now, we can start to look at strategies like naps. Those can definitely help. I have found that for me, if I'm able to think about at least one day on the weekend where I kind of get a nap in, a rest, a weekend rest, and that usually will be enough to kind of keep my sleep balance pretty good. But your sleep efficiency is something that we got to pay attention to, and how much time do you need to be in bed, and what type of REM and deep sleep you're getting within that.
Yeah. I've heard mixed reviews on naps. Like I know Winston Churchill, who I love, said you nap every day, not just to sleep in your chair, but get your clothes off and get into your bed every day.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's cool, except Winston Churchill is super fat and
That's
he's
right,
very smart and a great world leader, but I don't want to take advice from him on health. So
That's right.
So anyway, so naps are good because I love a nap. I don't
think,
get a chance to take one often enough.
Yeah. There's we can define nap as a big sort of number, right? Or a broad description. I think once you get into hours long sleep in the afternoon, probably not a good idea.
Oh, I couldn't possibly do that. Yeah.
I think what I mean is, if you're doing 2 hour naps every Saturday or Sunday, probably not a good idea. I think if we're looking at that 20 to 45 minute, 20 to 50 minute kind of thing, then we're probably having more of, Dr. Oz really described this well. He would talk about, I think, coming out of his first heart surgery, kind of going to somewhere quiet and getting a 20-minute power nap or 30-minute power nap before he would go back and do like the second heart surgery of the day. And I mean, I can't say that I saw that frequently in the hospital. I can only say that in my life, I've seen that if I can just close my eyes for like 20 minutes, that's when I feel rejuvenated and more clear and kind of able to come back into my work world.
Yeah. Truthfully, I feel like at certain times, if I can get 3 to 5 minutes on an airplane
it's small
or something,
amounts. Yeah.
I'm okay for I'm like, I was dying 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. You just got like this little,
Is that legit?
It's kind of like, that's why
I'm
it's called a power nap, right? It's like it's really that. I think that once you get into past, an hour or two, you're going to really mess with your circadian rhythm. It's probably not going to be good. But I think if you're doing like this, 20 minutes kind of deal, that's probably ideal.
And I don't go to the sleep apnea doctor because I know they're going to tell me I have sleep apnea, and I have no interest in hearing that. I'm not wearing that thing. I travel too much to carry it on the suitcase and whatever. That sounds, and somebody said, what if you die? You could die in your sleep. I'm like, oh, because what a way to go.
Yeah.
I dare you. I don't know if
Not that bad, right?
What's your take on that? If I probably do have sleep apnea because I snore and I don't sleep great, but
there's a,
I'm not wearing the Darth Vader mask.
There's a growing body of evidence that shows that our skull structure is basically getting smaller over time. If we look at skulls from a couple hundred years ago, the palate was much wider in our, in 5, 6, 8 generations ago, whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're seeing more dental problems, people don't retain their wisdom teeth. We can talk about a lot of things that sort of point towards a sort of smaller head structure in humans. And so even that, it becomes more of a problem when we have someone who's overweight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're trying to shove more, kind of like trying to shove 10 pounds of sugar in a 5-pound bag, right? It's a problem. It's not going to really work well. So as our skull structure has gotten smaller over time, and it's because we don't eat the same way. We don't rely on like mastication to really break down food because we can cook it more. There's genetic reasons why this is happening too, but ultimately.
So chewing on your food long and hard is better for you.
Well, what I mean is we had to eat more things that were like woody stems and stuff in the past and tougher cuts of meat. And chewing like that was a way for us to stimulate our jaw structure. And since we don't eat that way anymore, we're not eating the way we ate, even 500 years ago.
Yeah.
And so with that, we've changed the way our bodies, we're adaptive organisms, right? So if given the path of least resistance, that's where, we're going to evolve to. And so with this, we've seen our skull structure, our body. Like there's a tribe in Africa that uses clicking sounds with their tongue to communicate with each other. They have a spoken tongue as well, but they click with their tongue. And you can look at their jaw structure, like you can look at the size of their maxilla and mandible, and it is so much wider than the average Caucasian person running around North America.
Because they
developed that palate by sticking their tongue up there and keeping their teeth and their facial structure pulled apart.
Yeah, we are perfectly made, and we everything that's come in that's been convenient is not necessarily healthy for us.
Oh, absolutely.
Like get out and definitely the move it or lose it, or use it or lose it, I guess would be the thing. Like being in motion, exercise. I always say to somebody, and you're going to have more information on this than I ever could, but I always say the best workout is one that you will do.
Yeah.
When I decided to really get into it, I was already kind of into it. And it's better to be kind of into it than not at all into it. But it is really, I will say, and kind of, referring to this situation and why I'm here doing this podcast, all of the spiritual things that I talk about in here and the people that I get to talk about them to, I don't know percentages, but like a third of me being able to deal with my grief and my issues, whatever, is physical motion. For one thing, physical exercise. And I don't run because I don't love it. Doesn't make my body feel right. So I hike and I walk and I lift and I do CrossFit, kind of just different things, but you got to find what's your thing. I hate being on a bicycle. I went full bike riding with a friend. That is the worst 2 hours I've ever spent in my life. I hate it. If you hate lifting,
then go ride a bike.
Yeah. Do Pilates, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But some sort of resistance. I don't know exactly what I would feel like if I weren't doing it, but I would want to blow my head off probably just on a general basis. But it is the best way to deal with stress that I have ever come across. And I'm 54 and I've tried every way, believe me. Talk about that.
We had a few minutes, we were chatting before we sat down and the big buzzword now and kind of like longevity medicine is that, or I say buzzword or buzz terminology, whatever, is that muscle is the organ of longevity. And kind of like, I don't know, let's make it like mid 2000 teens or so, 2014, 2015, something like that. The big evolution, I think, that happened in medicine at that point was kind of talking about the gut-brain axis and sort of how the health of the intestines and our GI tract influences our brain health. And I almost find it criminal in a way that we didn't really think about that before. I mean, I think I've told this on another podcast or YouTube something, but we would have to do a laparotomy or do it, open someone's abdomen. And after they had eaten, and you can see this network of blood vessels that runs over the intestine that just becomes as white as snow. It's just as beautiful. I mean, it looks almost like a perfect spider web running over every surface of your intestines and of your abdomen. And it's moving all those nutrients back up into the system so they can be pushed into the liver and you know, taken advantage of. So we didn't really, in surgery in those days, we didn't really make a big deal about that. And now I look back and I'm like, my gosh, man, you can see it happen, and we kind of missed it, you know? And I think now it's a similar thing with activity or muscle development and longevity, right? Just as there's a complex interplay, if there's problems here, if there's inflammation in the gut, if you're eating foods that are kind of not really good for you, then that's going to promote a balance of neurotransmitters and chemicals here that are going to kind of pollute the rest of the whole thing. And it seems to be that the brain is really sort of sensitive to all that, right? So now you could say that is eating bad food causes that negative interaction. If we take exercise as the food, so taking in that food, exercise, now causes you to release a bunch of positive chemicals that are not only going to affect the muscles and help them stay well, but the joints, the tendons, the blood vessels that are around that. But now you're harnessing the power of some chemical release that's going to affect everything else, and particularly your brain. And it seems to be sensitive to that. So if a young man came to me and said that they had symptoms with depression, then there are 3 things that, without even thinking about it, I would recommend that they do. And the first one is exercise every single day of your life. And exercise changes as we get older. I'm kind of like you. I ain't running no more. It hurts too bad. It doesn't make my body feel good. Give me a weighted vest. Let me walk for an hour and a half. I'm much happier doing that. And I'll go whatever hills you want to climb, you know, but I mean, and I just feel better that way. But yes, there is an inextricable link between activity and brain health. And even further than that, the neurochemical profile that's necessary for you to be positive, right? To sort of not be depressed, to not be down on life, or whatever sort of negative state you want to call it, melancholy maybe. But yeah, I truly believe that.
I mean, honestly, it's so direct with me. So I try to take Sundays off and not like lift, not do a real workout. And I was just taking the whole day and not doing anything. And by Sunday evening, especially in Nashville, where it gets dark at 4:00, I would be depressed.
Yep.
I mean,
you're like stir crazy. Like, what am I doing? I've done nothing all day. I feel so wasteful.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like, and so I decided, okay, I'm going to do something. I'll go hike or walk or get out and move. But it is literally the most direct. You cannot do a hard workout and be depressed. I don't believe that you can get depressed later, but you cannot. The hour after cold plunge, you cannot. I don't know that you can be depressed, and I shouldn't say you can't, because boy, I've come to realize
you'll be surprised.
Everyone's got their own story. And I never considered myself someone with the ability to get depressed, but I definitely know how it can go there now. But the difference between me on a day after exercise, and by the way, the further I get from the exercise, the more likely I am to let life in.
Yeah.
And be uptight about whatever it is, the minutia of life that's going on, the daily trivia that we get enslaved by.
So immersed in, yeah.
And I can lose that, but that feeling of euphoria that you get after an exercise, I always say drugs are pleasure first, pain later. Alcohol is pleasure first, pain later. Exercise is pain first, pleasure later.
That's right. Yeah.
And I have literally, lack of discipline has been much more painful to me in life than discipline up front. The pain's coming. I can give it to myself.
And that's pleasure now, pain later. Same thing. Lack of discipline is pleasure now, pain later.
It is. And it's not even really pleasure. It's just, ugh, I'm sitting there. But I can give myself a little pain up front. And it's not like everything's perfect pleasure, but I mean so much better. It's funny you talk about like our age. I'm in far better shape. I got sober 18 years ago. Oh my God. I was in terrible shape. Terrible shape. The 54-year-old version of me can kick the 34-year-old version of me's ass all day. So we do get, I mean, it's amazing how I treated my body like an amusement park for 20 years. And then
when you're younger, you can get away with that to some
Yeah.
degree, that
Yeah.
kind of, it becomes a little bit harder because the miles on the tires start to show,
Mhm.
But the thing that you were mentioning about the cold plunge, and I don't know, I'm kind of, sometimes I don't really have to know the numbers. I don't have to memorize the numbers. I just need to understand the concept. And the concept is that doing drug X led to a 50% increase in your dopamine for 10 minutes versus doing a cold plunge for 3 minutes led to a 400% increase in your dopamine for 2 hours. Like whatever it was a noticeable difference, and the cold plunge won hands down, right? So from an addict, because I think it was actually Dana White was talking about this. He was like, cold plunging is addictive. And I do my sauna most days in the evening, and right after that's cold shower. Now this time of year it's getting nice because the water's getting cold.
Yeah.
And you come out of a 160-degree sauna for a half hour, and then you go get in that water, and it's, man, and a minute and a half into that, your brain is flooded with dopamine, and it is a feeling like I've never had before. And I feel so good when I get done with that.
I'm completely addicted to it now.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, you do the cold shower at last, and then you get out. I'm like, no, I can do the cold shower, but then I need a really hot shower, but it doesn't really work that way, right? You
That's
need to do
right,
the cold
yeah.
shower last.
Yeah, try to do the cold last. Yeah.
It's been getting in the pool, which is probably at 54 degrees right now, but literally the colder it is, and this is my first year of doing that, I got one of those saunas off Amazon, the box, life changer. I want you to talk about the health benefits of that, because someone always says, well, what's the health benefit of the infrared sauna? I'm like, well, here's what I saw online, but I'm sure you have more than that.
Yeah.
But that there's something about the cold plunge that's euphoric in a strange way, and it lasts for a couple hours. It really does.
That's right. It does. And it's been proven, it's not something we're making up. So
yeah. Now it really sucks the first few times.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
the first 10 seconds are like the worst, right? The first 10 seconds you're like, oh, this is going to be really bad, and then
the
after
body
10
warms
seconds,
up. Why is that?
Look, it's a perceived thing too, right? So like, what's really happening is that your body's kind of like experiencing that shock of trying to figure out, like, this is a survival mechanism, and the only way that 10,000 years ago you would have done that is if you fell in freezing cold water, and your brain says, like, you don't need to be here. It's time to get away from this. And so that initial sort of surge that you feel is really more of that protective mechanism telling you, like, okay, you're in a bad circumstance here and you need to be aware of it, And then once you kind of get control of that and you're like, oh, okay, it's cool now, I can relax. Then all that feeling goes away.
So that's mental, some of that.
Oh, absolutely. It's mental. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. I mean, there's, Wim Hof has kind of proven that, I think. I don't know how much Wim Hof stuff, but Wim Hof, I think he's either Austrian or German, but there's a Wim Hof technique, a whole breathing method that he came up with.
Yeah, I've heard. I haven't researched.
He's like climbed Everest in shorts and stuff, and so I mean, he did an experiment where he had some researchers in Germany. I think it was in Hamburg that he did this, but they injected him with a substance called endotoxin. And endotoxin is a poison that's released by certain bacteria. We typically associate it with a condition called sepsis, which is basically an overwhelming bacterial infection, right? Mm-hmm. And so if a certain bacteria can release this endotoxin, and he told these researchers, he said, you guys can inject me with that and it won't make me sick. And they said, oh, whatever, that's not true. Well, not only did they inject him and it not make him sick, but because he had to prove that it wasn't just a fluke, he had a bunch of his students come in and get injected with endotoxin, and it didn't make them sick either. So it's something that is cultivatable, right? Like, you can manicure that in yourself. He has done, it's taken him how many years of working at this and cultivating it within his own body. But this man can have a toxic substance injected into his body, and because he can control this so well now, it doesn't affect him.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've had a few people, why are you trying to live forever? But by the way, I'm not. I mean, I work out and hang out with guys, my cousin, whatever, that are far better shape than I am. I am by no means. I'm just interested. I'm a good student now. I love it. But I have had people go, "Oh, you're trying to live forever?"
Yeah, sure.
Like, absolutely not. I'm so comfortable with death that you would be uncomfortable with my comfort. Doesn't matter, but it does affect your day-to-day mood first. It takes my day-to-day mood first, then the physical aspects. It literally, the mood enhancer is something I can't really describe, only because when I go without it, how easily it is for me
Opposite
to.
that you feel. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
so. So I wanted you to tell me about infrared sauna too, because now that I'm
I'm a
doing
big
that, I want
fan.
yeah.
Big fan.
So
of
what
it.
are the health benefits? Because people ask me, and I'm like, well, here's what I read on the internet, but I don't really.
So, you know, if you really want to get granular about this stuff, there's people who have looked at the difference between like an infrared sauna, which most people I think would say needs to be between like maybe 140 and 160 degrees. The thought being that the infrared waves are kind of penetrating your body's tissues at a deeper level. And so the heat and the benefits of an infrared sauna aren't necessarily derived strictly from the temperature, but from the wavelengths of light and how they're sort of affecting your cellular function, right?
Okay.
So we know that near, mid, and far infrared lights have different effects on cellular function. So that, I mean, we could spend an hour just talking about, what are those benefits, right? But being out in the sun is typically thought of as a good thing, right? So that's where we get some
Where I'm
of that
from, it is,
naturally,
yeah.
right? Yeah, exactly. Well, that's kind of where I grew up too. Like get outside. That's always, our parents didn't like us in the house. So anyway, I think there's the benefits from the light itself, and then there's the temperature benefits, right? So, and then various researchers have found that somewhere around like 4 times a week, 30 minutes, 160 degrees. If you do that 4 times a week, you would lower your all-cause mortality by like 40%. So there's a 40% less likelihood of you dying of anything if you get in the sauna 4 times a week for 30 minutes at 160 degrees. That's a no-brainer to me, right?
That's like, a no-brainer. I'm in
easy.
forever on that. And,
Yeah.
and that heart attack or heart disease,
everything.
It
cuts
lowers
all-cause mortality by 40%.
Yeah.
So there's that. And the reason why this happens is because it's sort of the same thing that fasting does, right? So like you intermittent fast every day. So you're getting like a mini dose of a challenge to your body every day. By the time you get to like 10 o'clock in the morning, your body's realized like there's no calories coming in. Maybe we had to figure out if some of our liver cells needed to be killed off, right? We're kind of cleaning house because we've got a limited amount of nutrients for everybody. Then when you feed the system reprioritizes, building new tissue back and kind of helping your body. But imagine that you fasted for a week, right? Imagine that you fasted for 4 days. So you've put your body through this intense amount of stress, similar to getting into a high heat environment, right? Just it's truncated into a smaller amount of time. And so just as putting your body through that stress, whether it's starvation or heat, is going to build a more resilient system. It's just going to improve the health of the tissues that are there and make them stronger. It's not going to make them weaker. They are going to release heat shock proteins that are going to strengthen the integrity of your nerves, your blood vessels, and lead to cell turnover, right? Getting rid of old dead cells, replacing them with newer healthy ones. And, all the winning of this comes from actually going through the stress. It's like we were talking about before. It's the sort of fact that we have easy access to food and you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, it's all convenient for us now. We really don't have to work hard for it. Right.
We didn't have to go kill something and
that's
drag it
what
home.
That's what kills us. Right. It's the comfort and complacency that kills us. It's when you put yourself through a 5-day fast or a 160 degree sauna session 4 times a week that you're going to be healthier.
I need to do that 5-day fast thing, huh?
No, man, I haven't done that yet either. My wife is a much more formidable, character.
Here's the thing. I can do it. I need to be busy, but I can't have to be creative.
Well, and I found that I've got 4 kids in the house, which means that there's always somebody in my kitchen getting food.
Yeah.
And so I would basically have to like leave my entire house or first floor of my house to like stay away from everybody.
Yeah. There is definitely the, if I'm surrounded by like crappy food, I'm probably going to eat it unless I'm fasting. But I'll be honest, before I started doing it, I don't know that I had ever been hungry for more than an hour in my life.
Yeah.
If you're hungry, you go get something to eat. Even as terrible as the food was in my house growing up, and bless my mom for being just a horrible cook, but there's something there. You could go get a Little Debbie oatmeal pie, whatever, and just denying yourself after a couple of days. And honestly, it started with when the emotional pain of loss. When I lost, I'm like, well, if I'm going to have this emotional pain, I would like some physical pain to go with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
it sounds kind of strange, but it made fasting. I wouldn't have ever dreamed of doing it. As a matter of fact, the first day I ever fasted, it's a pretty funny story. I was eating about 10 o'clock at night every night. And I figured, well, I'll just stop eating about 10 o'clock at night because I ate right before I went to bed forever, until the last 4 years ago.
What would you eat?
Okay, I was just so horrible. I would eat a half gallon of ice cream every night at 10 o'clock before bed.
Okay. So a quart of ice cream, basically.
Every night. I mean, like, ask my wife, like every single night I would eat a half of
Okay,
a
what flavor was it? You got to tell us that, right?
Well, Breyer's mint chocolate chip. I switched them up, man, because if you eat that much ice cream,
you got to try the
then
variety.
I would go to Lenny's and whatever. So anyway, I'm like, okay, well, I can't stop eating late at night, which I have since very much done that. But so I'll wait until 2 o'clock to eat the next day. So we're writing with Jamie Johnson. You know who Jamie Johnson is? Yeah. Big deal. So we're writing with Jamie Johnson, the first day I ever intermittent fast. And I'm like, well, at 2 o'clock, I'll eat something. So it's 10 o'clock, I ate the night before. I wait my 16 hours. And at 2 o'clock, we were writing in Jamie's office, which is one of those Music Row offices where you're not close to anywhere place to eat. It's kind of a dungeon-ish feel, but you're up, on the third floor. And I thought Jamie smoked a bunch of pot and there would be tons of munchy stuff around. Didn't.
Nothing.
Doesn't smoke pot anymore. There wasn't a raisin in that office. I mean, nothing to eat. There wasn't a one chip or a nut or a peanut, nothing. And we didn't know Jamie very well. We're in there all day. And I was like, all right, we'll just run. We didn't finish till after 6. So my first 16-hour fast was 20.
20 hours, yeah.
I was so hungry that I passed the pain part. I was a little weak when I got home.
Yeah.
And that day, I don't even know if it would have worked, but I went, man, if I can do that, if I can do 20 hours, I could do 16.
Yeah.
And I bet there are less than 20 days in the last 3.5 years that I haven't
fasted for
16 hours after I finished my last meal since that day. And I would have thought that would have driven me to not do it again. But somehow I went, wait,
that wasn't that bad, right?
I can be hungry.
Yeah.
I never assumed that I could be hungry without dying. It's an interesting kind of thing. And I think once we get accustomed to discomfort, the cold plunge is less daunting than it was 2 months ago when I started it.
Yeah.
It's less daunting.
Even though the water's colder now.
The water's colder now. The workouts that I do are something that would have made me sick 5 years ago. And I still did something. I'm always into just do something and then you can improve just a little bit
on that
every year.
It's the same thing with our clients, right? Like if I get you walking 30 minutes a day, I'll take 30 minutes a day. Because if I got 30, what I'm really doing is getting you to allocate a placeholder, right? I'm getting you to figure out that 30 minutes on your schedule that you're going to dedicate right now to walking. But in 3 months from now, I'm going to have you doing more aggressive exercises during that 30 minutes. But I just got to get a placeholder on the mat first.
What's the thing we don't do that we all need to do? One absolute thing we don't do that we need to do, and the thing that we do that we shouldn't. I mean, not we, but everybody, your average patient.
Oh, gosh. Well, let's see. I think the one thing that we should do that we don't is...
Thank you for tuning in to the Good Grief, Good God Show. As always, the Good Grief, Good God Show is brought to you in loving memory of Sage Michael.